Okay, good. All right, my name is Nanette Galloway. I am the chair of the Sustainable EHC, which is the city's green team. And we do a lot in the city, behind the scenes. We've been doing a lot of investigations on our environment and the energy consumption, things like that. But over the last 12 years, we've generated over $2 million in funding for, most of it was for planting new trees in town, and which are pollinators, and certain trees pollinate bees and others pollinate, like oak trees pollinate numerous caterpillars that turn into butterflies and moths and things like that. So for the past couple of years, we've been doing this spring environmental series. This is our first event of this spring, so we have 6 events lined up. You can come to all of them, or one of them, or none of them. But we're glad you're here today. And today we're going to learn about honeybees and mason bees. There's 2 different types of bees. And we have Dave Elkner, who is a beekeeper and he lives locally in Laureldale. And he's been raising bees, honeybees, for 47 years.
46, 47.
When he works, his hives are located all over South Jersey. He takes them to farms, but he'll tell you all about this. He takes them to farms so that the farmers can get their crops pollinated. So that's the important thing. Our series this year concentrates on pollination and specifically bees and butterflies. We have some information up there. We have some milkweed seeds. I know everybody knows about milkweed, that we should be planting milkweed for the butterflies, for the monarchs. That's their host plant, and it's the only thing they will lay their eggs on and come back year after year to your garden. The monarch migration, it has started. It's reached South Carolina, so we should be seeing monarchs in our region within a couple of weeks. Oh, I knew that was going to be. And so the monarch population this year is up for a change. It's usually down, but I think they had like a 60% increase in the monarchs. You know, it takes 4 generations of monarchs to do the trip all the way up to Canada and then go back. The 4th generation of monarch butterfly flies all the way from Canada to Mexico. And it's in a small park. They all go to the same park in Mexico. So it's an amazing thing, and I learned about the environment, new things every day. So if you're interested in getting involved with the green team, we meet on Tuesday nights. Most months of the year. I take off a couple of months in the summertime because I'll take some away. But you can find all this information on our website, which is SustainableEHC.org, or you can go to SustainableEHC on Facebook, and we publish everything there. So I appreciate you signing in. This helps us get more funding when we show how many people come to our events and so forth. So please come back, and there's more information up there. There's stuff for the kids, and then we'll have 2 presentations. The first one is with Dave, and the second one, Samantha Timbers is going to talk about the mason bees. So, Dave,
Thank you. Again, I'm Dave Elkner. I've been doing beekeeping for about 45 years. I was the local president, which is the South Jersey branch of beekeepers. We go from the Atlantic Ocean to the Delaware. We go from Cape May till about the pacemaker plant, the Mullica River. That's South Jersey's area of coverage. I then was asked to run for the state, and I just retired as state president. And that was February 28th. My 4-year term was up as state president. New Jersey has about 1,354 registered beekeepers within the state, but has about 3,500 beekeepers, which is about 2,000 of them are not registered in the state. My goal today is to give everybody just an overview of what happens inside this. This is a beehive. How many people here are a beekeeper, want to be a beekeeper, know a beekeeper, been in a beehive? Has anybody dabbled in it? Dabbled in honeybees?
no.
Okay, we gotta work away from the mason bee on my first day. We'll come to the honeybee. There's a big saying with the beekeeping community, ask 5 beekeepers the exact same question, you're gonna get 6 different answers. So the goal is this time of year, the honeybees are expanding real quick. The colonies are growing in number, they're coming out of the winter. Those queens are ramping up egg production because they're getting to the part of the year where their natural reproduction is gonna take over and they're gonna throw swarms out. And swarms are where you see that ball of bees, of honeybees, just like a football, a baseball. I call them as big as this super. So what happens is when this colony gets crowded, the bees inside say, okay, we've got no more room, we still want to keep growing, so somebody's got to leave. So the old queen takes off with about 30% of the bees in here about 2 days before the new queen hatches out. And then she flies out 100 yards from the hive and they land. Wherever she lands, that ball forms around her to protect her. So once they're in that tree, on the side of that building, on that fence post, on that corridor, then they send scouts out to look for a new home. They're looking for something about this size or a little bigger. If you have holes in your wall, they'll go in your wall. They look for big trees. They'll go for, in California, they find them in the underground water mains. They're looking for a hollow cavity. Honeybees cannot live in open air. They can't just build home there and then live through the winter. They need to be inside something protected. A home, your house is perfect because your home is typically heated to 60 degrees in the winter. They have to do less work because they're inside that wall and they're getting that heat. So it helps the honeybee colony survive. No matter what the outside air temperature is, if it goes down to -1, like we had several days, this colony needs to maintain 50 degrees inside. If they don't maintain 50 degrees, they die. So everybody asks, how the heck do they do that? So when all you young people put your hands together and wiggle them like this, what do you feel?
Heat.
Getting heat. So how do you think the honeybees keep that temperature inside there at 50 degrees? Pardon? Okay, but if they're packed in a ball, so you're on the right track, and I guess that's where what you were gonna say? So when it's warm, 57 degrees, they spread out in here. And when it gets cold, they pack in a ball. And the tighter they pack, and then they vibrate, they wiggle like their hands do. So the colder it gets, the tighter they pack, the faster they wiggle. And that generates the heat. When it warms up, they slow down and spread out. So that's how they maintain heat. Now think about that. They're in this little itty bitty wooden box, and it's -1 degrees outside, -1, and they need to keep it at 50 degrees in there, or they will die. So picture how quick they're doing that wiggle and how tight they're packed. So small colonies, a little cluster like this, doesn't have enough bees to hold the heat, and they freeze to death. A large cluster can generate that kind of heat to hold that 50 degrees. About 4, maybe 5 weeks ago, my queen started to lay eggs. From the time there's an egg in there, which is a baby bee, they need to ramp that temperature up to 90 or 91 degrees. No matter what the outside air temperature is. So when we go into the 40 degrees next week, again, a couple of days are going to 40. Beekeepers are real dependent on temperature. They need to maintain 90 degrees in there, or that brood chills down and dies. So now think about these things, mom, dads, that what they got to do, wiggling and vibrating and packing the bees on there. So now my colony is growing, but first I want to explain what we have. This is called a Lang straw 10-frame beehive. This is called, so we're going to equate it like your house. This is called the outer cover. This is like the roof on your house. It's just a wooden cover, tin to protect it from the sun and the rain and the snow. And this one is used, so I don't have any pretty new stuff. And that protects, like I said, hooks hold the heat. The next thing we have is called an inner cover. An inner cover is like our ceiling, right? So it helps again hold the heat. But the inner cover has a hole in it. So now when the baby bees hatch out, they gotta have some place to go and exercise their wings and strengthen. They come up from the frames and they come in this hole, and there's a gap here. See the gap? And they come up here and they exercise their wings, they strengthen their wings before they fly. So it gives them cluster space, and then they can exercise the wings, they can walk around. We also have a slot in the back that allows airflow to come in. So this is how they keep, some ways to help regulate the temperature. So this is a deep super, that's the box. And inside, we have frames. Now the frames are going to equate to like the rooms in your house. So when mom, go ahead. I'm going to show you some of them in a minute. So what happens is then this is 10 frame, that's why it's called a 10 frame hut. So when your mom and dad first got married or whatever, they didn't need a lot of room. But then when they started having kids and they had people, grandma moved in with you, they need more room. So as this colony grows, you put more supers on top. And if you don't give them more room, that's when they get crowded and they say, hey, we're gonna split, we're gonna take off. That's when the old queen says, I've gotta go. The reason the old queen leaves the colony, because if she doesn't, the new queen, when she hatches out, hunts her down and kills her. There can only be one queen in the hive. On rare instances, there are two. So that new queen has got to beat feet to get out of here. So a new queen hatches from an egg till when she hatches out is about 16 days long. On day 14, that old queen says, I got 2 days to get out of God before that new girl hatches out my daughter and she'll kill me. And I've seen it. I've seen it. That new queen is that new queen are brutal. They're very nimble, they're very fast. Where the old queen is mated, she's swollen up a little bit because she's been laying eggs. She's slower. She loses all the time in that battle. She loses all the time. So what I do is I give them a way to start. It doesn't look pretty, but it's very functional. I buy this wooden frame and it has a piece of plastic on it with the hexagonal shape, which is the strongest shape as opposed to a triangle, a square, or a circle, most economical on material and strongest shape there is. So that's the exact size, 5.4 millimeters, that the bees need. So they slide in there. I coat that plastic with beeswax. That's what you see on here. Because if it's just plastic, the bees they don't really like it a lot. And I need them to draw this out pretty. So I melt wax in a crock pot I stole from my wife. I take a foam brush and I paint it on there, just like paint. And that gives the bees a more attractive base to start to work with. So now you're saying, how come you got so much extra here? The bees will take that extra off and move it and mold it to the shape they need. So you can see on here how they start to draw it. They're starting to draw the wax out on here. They'll draw it out this wide. That's 1 3/8 inches. That's how much they'll draw it out, the width of this wood on the edge. They don't go beyond that. When it's all done, and this is what it'll look like. This one was used. That's why, and I sort of apologize, they're not pretty, but I don't have any pretty ones right now. They're all in the hives. So wasn't gonna open up. But this is from a hive that passed away over winter, but I wanted to show you the wax is drawn out about the width of the wood on the end, which is about 1 3/8 inches. In here, they store the honey for the winter, they store the pollen, and this is where the queen lays her eggs. This is honey. This is what capped honey looks like. This is honey that the bees did not eat, what you see on here capped. It takes 4 pounds of nectar to make 1 pound of honey. 4 pounds of nectar to make 1 pound of honey. It takes 60 pounds of honey for this colony to live through the winter. That's 240 pounds of nectar they need to gather between now and that killing frost in the fall to make it through the winter. Now, we've always heard that saying, busy as a bee. So now you know where it comes from. 240 pounds of nectar to live through the winter. That is not what's included to raise the bees that live in here all year. That's just to live through the winter. So a honeybee's sole objective from the time it's born to the time it dies is to gather enough food for the colony to live through the winter and start the cycle all over again in the spring.
Can you reuse that?
This spring, absolutely.
And you don't have to clean it or anything, you just keep it like that and just keep on?
So when I extract the honey, I have a tool that cuts the capping off. and then you heard the extractor, the stainless steel centrifugal, and it spins it, and the honey comes out. It spins it out on the wall and it runs down. I can take that drawn frame and put it back in, and the bees will refill it. Yes. The bees put a cocoon on the inside because bees are like a caterpillar or a moth. And they start to put the cocooning on the inside, so these pretty yellow frames will turn like a super dark brown. They're not as pretty, and when you show the public, you want something that looks a little more attractive so people get a better impression. But absolutely, I have some of them that are 15 years old. I try to cycle them out at 10 years because wax is like a sponge. It'll absorb insecticides and fungicides. And if you leave it in there, and then the queen lays an egg in there, and then after a while it becomes cumulative. And the new bees living inside that will get that and they may perish. So you try to cycle out, you try to cycle out your old frames. You don't want that for a prolonged period. Especially if you get tied up with blueberry pollination. Because blueberries are heavily treated with fungicides. And fungicides, while they don't kill the adult bees, will kill the baby bees inside the cells. This frame, when it's filled and all ready for winter, will hold between 4 and 6 pounds of honey. So one box of 10 at 6 pounds of frame is about the 60 pounds they need to go through winter, give or take. Again, depending on the type of honey. So
You can just leave these boxes out.
I'm gonna go there. So what happened is I caught swarm, but I didn't have 10 frames in here. I had 2 on the outside and a couple in the middle. And I didn't get to them for 2 days, and the bees started to draw, you can see on the sides, and they put the comb in the middle. They don't draw pretty, nice in straight lines like you want. They just start to go all wonky comb, it's called, and they start to draw all over the place. So I just wanted to show you, that's about maybe 4 or 5 hours worth of work for them right there. They draw quick. Now what I'm gonna do is this was a piece that was on there, it's a piece of comb. There's nothing in it, you can't hurt it, just don't swish it, because I like to take it with me. But I'm gonna pass it around so everybody can feel how light that is.
So what is this?
That's the actual comb, that's wax. That's 100% beeswax.
Do they make the bee
Yes.
wax?
Yes,
It's not the one that wax you put on there.
no, they actually make that. So beeswax is like, if we were to make it an equivalent to people, it's like fingernails or hair. It just sort of grows on out. The beeswax comes from the platelets, the honeybees shields on their bottom. It comes out from there like hair. They take it off with their feet and they mold it, and then they draw it out in these shapes. So at this time of year, probably another 3 weeks real heavy, they're gonna start to draw a lot of wax out, because that's when they're gonna do a lot of this drawing on here. A lot of those frames, that's the terminology that's used. I take my hives, I'm sorry, and then this is the bottom board. So this is like the door on a house. Your windows, your doors, it all sort of is the same. So all the bees fly in and out of here. Now, if you have a beehive, and I leave it sit right here, and I leave it open for 2 days, and they're flying in and out, and I pick this hive up, and I literally move it right here, all these bees, when they take off, will come back to this spot. They mark it exactly. There's been a lot of research done with that, and they feel they work off the magnetic fields of the earth. So that's how bees, but think about that again. They reorient, they will orient to that location. So if I take this hive and pick it up, put it here, they all go back there, and they'll form a ball there, and that's where they'll die. You can pass it to the folks in the back if you would.
Oh, yeah.
It's all, okay, thank you, you can just put it down. So think about how exact that little insect is. They say that a honeybee's nose is olfactory. How many people here with science, they know the term olfactory, that's your breathing, olfactory, is better than a great white shark's. A honeybee can smell one apple tree 2 miles upwind. So if there's an apple tree 2 miles up there, the wind's blowing this way, that honeybee can smell it and knows how to go there. They find it. Where a great white is how many parts per million of water, blood in the water. So just think about how good the honeybees are. There are certain floral sources that are more attractive than honeybees. Honeybees don't like blueberries. So when I put beehives into a blueberry field to help the farmer set that fruit, I need to put 2 hives for every acre. When I go into an apple field, it's 1 hive for every 2 acres. So I pollinate apples, which I just got my phone call this morning. This weekend, I'll start moving colonies into apples up in Mullica Hill. I will also probably the next week, I'll be moving hives into blueberries, up in Mullica Hill. There's a blueberry farmer, and I rent my hive to them. So I take my hives, I put screen on here so the bees can't get out. I pick them up and I put them in their field, and they sit there for as long as that plant or that tree or that bush is blooming. So for blueberries, they're sitting there about 21 days. For apples, they're about 7. And the apple, then we're gonna get a little technical, but the apple produces 5 or 6 flowers. The center bud is called the king bud. That's the one that will produce the biggest, most perfect fruit. The other ones around it are called satellite blossoms. The farmers only want that king bud to pollinate. Because if there are many apples on the tree, the king apples, the first ones that bloom, don't get the full amount of energy from the tree, and they don't develop that big, perfect apple. So the only time they want the satellites to bloom is if you take a frost in a king bud, because they bloom first and it drops down below 28 degrees, the king bud freezes. So then they have to take it and they want this many set. So when you eat an apple and it looks lopsided, it's not perfectly shaped. Now there's a bunch of reasons, but a lot of the reason is it may not have been pollinated. So if there's an apple and this is the inside, they're all seeds. If one seed doesn't get pollinated, the apple develops the fruit around the seed to protect it. If there's no seed here, they don't have to put fruit, so the apple grows lopsided. That's why pumpkins, cucumbers, if they're perfectly shaped, the pumpkin is perfectly shaped, it was adequately pollinated. Same thing with apples. Perfectly shaped, they get pollinated. Bees in a field do not give the farmer more fruit. They give the farmer larger fruit. Because the more seeds that are set, the bigger the fruit has to be. So a farmer will pick up between 15 and 20% larger fruit, bigger blueberries, bigger pumpkins, bigger apples, bigger cantaloupe, if that's pollinated.
Each seed has been pollinated,
Mhm.
like inside a cucumber and wow.
Oh, yeah. How many people like almonds? You would not eat an almond without a honeybee touching it. Almonds are 100% dependent on honeybee pollination. The bees just came back about 3 weeks ago from the California almond fields. 66% of every beehive in the United States goes out to the California almonds. The beekeepers get paid between $200 and $250 a hive to put them in there. Around here, for my blueberries, my apples, my cucumbers, I might make $100, $105, depending on the length of time, the farmer. There's some special deals that I work with them. So in this area, you do not make as much for pollinating as the people do moving them into almonds, but almonds need it. An apple will pollinate without bees by the wind, but you're not gonna get that real pretty apple. You're not gonna get that real big pumpkin, that cantaloupe or that cucumber might have a curl to it. That's inadequate pollination. This hive with bees in it, how much do you think it costs me to do one hive? With these frames, this box, not my labor, not my paint, how much do people wanna think this is worth right here in today's world? How much? 250? Any other thoughts? This is worth about $500. So beekeeping, as I tell new beekeepers are interested, is disposable income. You don't wanna get into this unless you have some money that you're willing to invest. It's not a invest today, have it back tomorrow kind of program, it's long term. And I want to touch on one other area. Honeybees are affected, there's diseases and there's bugs that kill honeybees, just like anything else. There's a mite. A mite is like a wood tick. How many people know what wood ticks are? You've had wood ticks on, right? So picture a mite that gets on the honeybee, it's called Varroa. Varroa destructor, that's its Latin name. So that mite gets on the honeybee, attaches itself just like it does to us, drills a hole in the honeybee's carcass. They don't have skeletons like we do, they have a shell. It drills a hole in it like a tick does, and it sucks the juices out of the honeybee. And that doesn't kill the honeybee. It makes the honeybee weaken, but don't kill it. What kills the honeybee is when that proboscis, they take it out and they go to lay their eggs inside the cells. That little hole, the honeybee can't patch it up. It's not like a cut unless it grows over. That hole stays. In viruses give us colds, right? Viruses get inside that cut and destroy that bee. And there's 27 known viruses that are in the hive all the time, naturally occurring. But when you have a high mite population, they're drilling a lot of holes in a lot of bees and it weakens the colony. They came over from the Asian community. That's where the varroa mites started. And then they've traveled across Europe and then they got into the United States. So if I get 3% mites, 3%, that's 3 out of every 100 bees. If 3 of the bees have mites on them, that colony will not live through the winter. That colony will die. That viruses are that deadly. So beekeepers have to give their bees medication. You got to kill the mite. But you're trying to kill a bug, a mite on a honeybee. Very hard to do. Very hard to do. There are synthetic, natural, and IPM, preventative maintenance to do it. And we're getting a little technical, but what I'm trying to tell you is for me to treat this one colony one time in the course of a year, it costs me $29. 100 colonies at $29 a piece. I need to treat 3 times a year. I do it in July, I do it in the end of August, and then I come back in December. December's treatment is cheap, it's about 4 cents, it's a different style. So you hear me say, you make $100 on pollination for that crop, and you can get $10 a pound for honey, and you might get 30 pounds out of a hive. But when you sit down and think about how much is invested in the colony, how much I have to put out every year on every hive, and then not counting me having to replace queens in here that are between $40 and $60 a piece, those expenses add up. So when your neighbor has bees and they give you a jar of honey, because they want you to stay friendly and not complain about their bees flying around your yard, landing on your grass, and then your kids stepping on them with their bare feet on a dandelion and getting stung. So think about what the expense is to the beekeeper to keep that colony alive. 80% of new beekeepers, so if we had 100 beekeepers in here start beekeeping this year, 80% of them are out of it in the first 3 years. Rarely do you get beyond 80%. When you get to people like me that I like to say are dumb and stupid, I just sort of got into it and never got out. I've been doing it 45, 46 years. You're probably down to less than 1% of 100 people that'll carry it out that far. And in conclusion, because I can go on all day, but we have another speaker, commercial beekeepers, and New Jersey has 5 of them, run between 5,000 and 10,000 colonies each. Dottie Harvey in Monroeville, Fruitwood Orchards in Monroeville, Bee Crop, Top Bee in Monroeville, Tim Stewart in SL Manor, Grant Stiles in Chadds Ford. They're all commercial beekeepers. They run between 5,000 and 10,000 colonies. They take them to Florida in the wintertime where the queens keep laying, and then they go to almonds, and then they bring them back to make sure they're all in good shape, and now they're going to start working their way up the coast. They're probably into the Virginias right now for their blueberry set, and then they just follow the crop up. The 14th of this month, the commercial beekeepers will start bringing their bees into the blueberry fields. This weekend coming, I received a call just before I got here. My apple farmer said, Dave, he said, I want my bees on Friday. Well, he wanted some tonight, but that's not happening. I'll be in divorce court if I'm in bees tonight, and it's cheaper not to move in. Divorce is not. So my wife has a store in Mays Landing. It's called the Crystal Hive. She sells the honey, the creamed honey, the flavored honey, the beeswax, the candles. That's her. I'm the beekeeper. That's me. So I do all the work. She makes all the money. My job is to make it. Her job is to spend it. She's better at her end than I am, and she's pushing me all the time for it. So if anybody wants to buy local honey, you can take one of the cards. I ask that if you see one of those balls of bees, a swarm, and it can be this big, or it can be the size of this box, give me a call, and I'll come take them away for free. They're honeybees, I'll just come pick them up. Because that then saves me from taking one of my hives and making two or splitting it into 3 or 4. And that's what I was doing yesterday. You know, free one, I get them out of your hair, they don't go into your wall. Or get onto your trash can, they don't give people problems. I just wanna show you one other thing, when I work my bees, I'll wear exactly what I'm wearing right now. This, and I put my veil on. Because I do not like things in the ear or the nose. I invent new languages. The pain that puts in my ear or my nose, then I'm telling you, I go to tears, that hurts my nose or my ear. So I wear the veil. But like this, my hands, my arms, this is exactly, I'm gonna be in beehives within the hour when I'm done here. I go home and drop this off, I have hives out in Galway, I have hives in Buna. I have to get in my hives and get them ready for moving into fruit. So. Real quick questions?
I have,
Sure.
or in the cold weather, you said they pack together.
It's called a twofer.
Okay, well, you have all that other stuff in there, how are they in between?
Yep.
Packed like
Mhm.
that?
They're in between all those frames.
Uh-huh,
So those frames are full of honey. So what they do is they're eating that honey, and that's how they're generating the energy like we eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Mhm.
And then when they empty out, they move through that hive real slow. They move from frame to frame or frames to frame. Yes.
Oh, okay.
So when you say if we see, like, you're talking about just a swarm
Of all
bees,
these. Mhm.
of, like, they fly and then they kind of all they're all looking for a place to go.
So when that old queen comes out of here, she'll fly right here or she'll fly 100 yards out. Wherever she lands, they form around her. And then they send scouts out to look for that hole in your house, that trash can, that gas can, that hollow tree. Over on St. Louis, by St. Nick's Church, you have a lot of them big tall poplar trees and real big trees. They're notorious for developing hollow holes in them. I fought swarms over there. I worked at Release Boat Works, the old ocean yacht plant. I had a hive like this in the back of my truck. This was open because I was gonna go work my bees when I got done work that day. When I came out, the swarm had moved into this in the back of my truck. So all I had to do was scream and drive them home. That was real nice.
Yeah.
That was one of the most smoothest ones I've ever done. But yes, I go and I collect the swarms without a doubt.
So if you're starting a hive, where do you get the queen? Where does she come from?
So what happens if you're gonna start, you're gonna have put all this together 3 weeks ago. And then you have the option of buying bees from somebody. You don't buy just a queen, you need bees, because the queen is nothing but an egg laying machine. She doesn't feed the bees, she don't guard the colony, she just lays eggs. She weighs 2 grams and she'll lay her own body weight every 24 hours. Every 24 hours, she's laying 2,500 to 3,500 eggs. So that's when she hits her peak, which will be May, my queens hit their peak production. You can buy a package of bees, you can buy a swarm with a queen in it. You can buy a nuke, which is 5 of these frames in a box, where the queen's already laying, they've already got the drawn comb. And then you just take 5 of these out, put the new 5 in there, and you start a colony. That way you can buy a whole hive. And then you can just, you start your, or you can catch a swarm. Swarms are free, but there's every beekeeper in the world will say after free bees, so that's more difficult to do.
Are they territorial? Can you mix 2 colonies together?
No,
Okay.
yes and no.
Uh,
This time of year, you can probably get away with that, but each queen has its own odor, very specific. So if this hive is here and this hive is here, they have different odors. So when this bee comes back, those guard bees smell that bee coming in, and if that odor doesn't match the queen, they attack it. So if one of these bees strays and goes into the wrong hive, they'll attack it and kill it. Most times it fights and it gets away and then says, I made a wrong turn,
Oh.
I gotta try it again.
Yeah.
Attack people.
Do bees attack people? Attack is a wrong word. They'll defend the colony. This is their home. So if you come in here, you start rapping on it, or if you're a dog and you stick your nose in it, if you stand in front of it, you don't want anybody standing in front of your front door, you don't want anybody knocking on your windows, they'll come out and defend it. So that it's not that they're attacking you, they're defending their colony. But go just fly around looking for somebody to sing, how you don't feel. Yeah, I can take bees and put them in my hand. I can take these bees and put them in my hand. When there's a swarm hanging, I take my hand and I push it right into the middle of the ball and I pull it out. To show the people the bees weren't bad. I need the public to get a comfort level with honeybees, and that's the best way to do it.
Do they know your scent? So that wouldn't be any different.
You can do it.
Oh,
Now, remember how accurate the bee's nose is.
yeah.
When you're afraid, there's a pheromone that you release when you're afraid. You let that fear pheromone out, they can smell it. You can't. That will trigger them to become nasty with you.
Oh,
Where I don't have, I'll get stung 3-4 times today. I don't bother me, not in the face, not in the face. So. Okay,
And there's a queen in every box? Or-
no, just this one hive. This,
And then you stack on top and, but they're all working for her.
absolutely, she's working for them.
Right,
It's the young bees that control the colony.
okay.
So, well, less than 3-week-old bees, they dictate what the colony's gonna do, swarm, draw wax, they control it. And without getting into the life cycle of bees and drones and all, I mean, like I said, we can talk all day, but we have another presentation I wanna hear on the mason bees.
Fast, so.
So she, how? I mean, she's making a lot of babies.
Yep.
But how often does she make another female?
Okay, so when this as the queen
Because she's
gets,
gonna have to leave, so she
as the
doesn't wanna make a
as the
female.
queen gets older, 2 years old, 3 years old, her pheromone decreases. Now, these bees are smelling her, so now the bees up here don't smell the queen because their odor is weaker. Then they say, okay, we've gotta get a new queen, because we're not gonna survive, so then they draw a thing called queen cells. That they hang down from the frame, and they look like a peanut. It hangs down, and it's bigger, it's about that big. And then the old queen lays an egg in there. So the difference between a bee that stings you and a queen is only by the amount of food the queen gets. A worker bee is a female that did not receive enough food when she was in these cells to let her ovaries develop. A queen is fed, and I'm gonna use a technical term, precocious amounts of bee bread. That's nectar, pollen, and there's an enzyme. The bees take that nectar and mix it with a chemical that comes out of their brain. And that becomes what they call royal jelly, that white like Vaseline looking type material. And they feed that new queen that, and she just eats and eats and eats, and then her ovaries develop. So when the old queen is failing, they'll put 25 to 20 to 30 queen cells in there. And then the old queen, she don't know nothing, she's an egg machine, she just comes along and puts an egg in there. And then the young bees just feed it and feed it and feed it, and it develops into a queen. Ovary perfect queen. If it gets a limited amount of food, the ovaries are the last thing that then gets expanded on the inside. So the worker bees can't get mated and can't lay more girls. They only be able to lay drones, the male bees.
Wow, that's interesting.
And I can go on all day, but I don't wanna
One
overrate.
last question, yeah.
I don't have a problem with questions, but
Well, if there's one bee, is there like a colony that it has to go to? If there's one.
Yep. It lives somewhere within 2 miles. So when you see a honeybee flying around out here, somewhere within 2 miles, there's a honeybee colony. So this hive sitting here, these bees, when they're looking for food, will fly 2 miles in any direction looking for food. They'll go that way, they'll go this way, 2 miles.
Do carpenter bees count as honeybee?
But that, you're speaking low.
Do carpenter bees count?
No, carpenter bees don't go in here. No, carpenter bees are another one of those solitary, well, not big colonies. These carpenter bees bore a hole and then they lay an egg, like the mason bees, they're the same. The bumblebees have a colony. They live underground and under stumps and things like that, but they'll get 40-50 bees in them. They get real defensive. They get real defensive when you mess with them.
There's many different species of bees,
And honeybees are not native to the United States. They were brought over in 1628. They're what is technically termed an invasive species. When they came over from England, they brought over a race of bee called the German black or the German brown bee. They were a little smaller, And they landed in 1628 down in Virginia, I don't remember, Charleston, I believe. And then they started expanding from there. But that race of honeybees was so nasty, and didn't take a lot to wind them up. They got phased out, and then they've gone to the Italian, which is a more general race, because we don't want having nasty bees in our yard here. So there's the Italian, the Caucasian, and the Carniolan. And each race has traits that are desirable, and each race has traits that are less desirable. So they're the three predominant. And then you have what they call the African bee, and all that is a hybrid cross. So when you open this hive up and bang it, maybe 3% will come out and defend the colony. Out of 50,000, you'll get 3%. When you go to an African bee colony and you bang it, you'll get 60 to 70%. So 50,000 bees and 6 to 70% come out, you can get tore up pretty quick. What's more potent, bee venom or rattlesnake venom? Ounce to ounce. Which one is more strong, fatal, deadly?
Well,
Nope,
No bee.
honeybees. Ounce per ounce, divine to vine, honeybee venom is way more than a rattlesnake. So,
Which ones are the best pollinators? Or is that a matter of opinion?
define best, because each race has its own
Okay.
advantages. The Carniolan flies when it's earlier and cooler.
Okay.
The Caucasian build more beautiful combs, so they're better for comb production. The Italians are the overall race, but the Italians go in the winter with a big cluster that needs a lot of food. The Carniolans go in with less bees, they need less food. So like I said, there's advantages and disadvantages. I prefer the Carniolan. That's the race I'm trying to standardize in my operation.
Race of honey.
Race of honeybee.
Those wood carpenter, do they pollinate as well?
They pollinate, but they don't pollinate crops. They'll pollinate native blueberries, the strawberries, the plethora in the fall. So they don't pollinate anything that overly benefits the human race, but they pollinate.
They always look like they have so much on them.
And they do, but it's nothing that we eat or rely on. Okay, one more question.
don't wasps make, hives?
But they do it out of a paper type material, and they're real nasty. They pollinate, but again, they don't pollinate apples and blueberries and cucumbers and cantaloupe, all those things we need, not to the degree that we need them. Okay?
Thank you,
Okay.
Dave. Thank you. Marty, come here and hold this for me. I want to take a nice picture of that.
Oh, I'm gonna crack a camera on you.
Just so I have it. Okay, good.
All
Thank
right?
you. Well, that was really informative. You didn't know you were gonna learn geometry today and everything else, about the birds and the bees, except no birds. So, I wanted to introduce Samantha Timbers. She's gonna talk about a different type of bee that you can bring to your yard. It's called a mason bee. I just found out about this bee. I have lots and lots of bees in my house. I have carpenter bees I have a cinder block house, so it's any type of wood trim, it just makes holes and lives in there and eats some stuff. They're all over my garden. And then I have cicada bees. They're like this big and they fly real low to the ground. They live in the ground and they come out. And I don't know what they're for, but they showed up a couple of years ago and my dog looks at them and goes away. But they're very docile. They don't bite or sting or anything like that. So bees are important. I used to have a garden that they pollinate. They even need pollination for flowers and things. So it's real important. This is real interesting. I just found out about mason bees, which are very little buggers, and she's going to tell you all about it.
Hello, guys. My name is Samantha Timbers, and I'm going to talk about mason bees. I promise to be super quick. And can everybody make a bee sound for me? Let me hear your this set your buzz. Very good. So, unlike honeybees, they live in hives, right? Mason bees are solitary bees, which means they don't need a hive to survive. They can just fly around. That's what they do. They're like who have ever watched Finding Nemo? Finding Nemo? You know how Dory how she's like just wandering around. That's the mason bee. The mason bee is the Dory of the bee world. They are solitary, they fly around pollinating different flowers. So they're a little bit hairier. So I have some information up here as well that you guys can take. And if you want to know any more about these bees, there's a site also called Rent the Mason Bee. So you can rent a mason bee. The mason bee is great for pollinating flowers because they're a little bit hairier. So what you'll see is like they're the little fat, fuzzy looking ones sometimes. And they carry the pollen on their bellies. So as they're flying, things are flying off of them, falling off of them as they pollinate the different flowers. So the most important thing, oh, my bee's trying to fall. Okay, so what I want to talk about quickly is the difference between a mason bee and a honeybee. Mason bees usually don't sting. Very rarely will you get stung by a mason bee. The mason bee will land on you, look at you, and then probably fly away. They're very friendly around animals and animals and kids. Unlike if your dog stuck their face in a honeybee hive, they will get stung. They lay solitary eggs. So this is what a mason bee, what we call a mason bee hotel would look like. No reservations needed. They just fly into this. So what they live in wood. They prefer to lay the little tubes here. They prefer to lay their eggs inside the tubes, and you can find them in trees. You can find them almost like the bees that live in the ground. They don't necessarily live in the ground, but they prefer to live in hollow holes. So you can find them all over. I have some. If you want to make your own bee abode, what happens is they live in these like little cardboard tubes here. I'll take one of these and pass them around. There you go. Everybody can get two. So what happens is the mason bee, because they're solitary and they don't have a hive, they just go from home to home, place to place, holes to holes, looking to lay their eggs. So this is how they continue to populate. What happens is the bee flies. Of course, the back of this is inside of a tree or inside of a box. So it's solid behind it. What happens is the bee flies in and lays the eggs. They lay up to 7 eggs in here. 5 eggs, actually. So the last 2 that are usually in here are female eggs. So what happens is the males will develop first. They fly out to go pollinate. And then the female eggs, as soon as they're born, they're able to lay eggs. They don't need to have a hive. They don't have a hive to lay it. So they'll fly out of this, for instance. If they're in this hole, they'll fly out, fly here, lay eggs, and then go about their business. They don't have to stay and guard anything. So you won't find a swarm of mason bees flying around. Another thing is that they belly flop. So when you see, if you ever just look out at your garden, you'll see bees just like belly flop into flowers, like they just dive down into the flowers. Those are more than likely mason bees because what they're trying to do is pick up that pollen on their bellies. Honeybees carry the pollen in their legs. So what happens is they call it basketing. So yeah, so they carry it on their legs. Mason bees are so messy. They're like the little sloppy kid that's in the lunchroom that has food everywhere. So they have it on their shirt. So they wear it on their belly. So as they're flying around, the pollen is being pollinated because as they fly, it's falling off of them. So that's how they pollinate. They can fly in 50-degree Fahrenheit weather. They stay close to a radius of about 300 feet. And they pollinate 90%, 95% of all the flowers on the land that wherever they land. So with that being said, we have some great things. Told you I was going to be quick. So I have some information on pollinators and also honeybees versus mason bees. And I also have information here in reference to how to create a bee journal. So if you're observing, if you have a flower garden, you can have your own little mason bee journal so that you can track and look at the bees as well. One more important thing about the mason bee is that they need to get a bath because they're messy, right? Nobody wants to be messy all the time. So what happens is they need a little bit of water. So what you would do, so these are here that you can take home and make as well. They like color, so they're attracted because they are pollinated, they're attracted to bright colors, flowers, things of that such nature, so they find it very appealing. So if you can get a little dish, not too much because they will drown if you put too much water in it. So what you would do is grab a little dish like this, put some stones or pebbles, or in this case, little pebbles that we have here, put a little bit of water. So what they do is they fly into this and they rinse themselves off. Because sometimes they fly into flowers that just stay on them, because some of the flowers do contain like some type of oil factor. And they have to wash it off in order for them to collect and pollinate to the next one. So you put a little water and then you can put it on the ground near your garden or on a little stand. So that they can come in and they can wash themselves and then they can go pollinate other flowers. So that, I told you I was gonna be fast, right?
Well, I wanted to ask, do they just show up, like if you hung that in your yard? Would they just show up?
Most of them, yes. So usually what happens is they are attracted to the flowers. So usually if there's flowers in your yard, you want to put your mason bee house near your flowers so that they would know that this is a safe space that they can go lay their eggs in. Yes,
So you wanna have your mason bee home out now,
yes,
so when they hatch out, the new queens then have a place to right away to lay.
correct.
So you don't wanna put it out in September, you wanna get it out this time of year.
Yes, right. As soon as, usually it's, for me, I put my mason bee house the first day of spring. Because that's when the weather's going to start to get warmer. And they can survive in, like I said, 50-degree Fahrenheit, 50-degree weather. So usually springtime, the weather starts to change and then you can put your mason bee house in your garage. I mean, in your garage, in your garden. So you don't have to hang, you can hang it from a tree. But I like to put mine closer to the flowers so that they know that they can go in. So yes.
And they like southern exposure, right?
Yes, yes, they do.
So but they don't live in there, the males go, and they don't come back, and the females just go and play more, and
Right.
Okay.
So basically, yes,
it won't be like 200 bees hanging around there all the time.
no. It's just like in the
Just for them
town.
to
They're just,
lay.
it's like a little vacation house.
Yeah, yeah.
So they come, they lay,
Babies and.
yeah, play some babies and then they go. And then, but the thing about this is that if you do create a mason bee house, you can clean it so that you don't want a lot of the residue. And sometimes there's eggs in there that do not hatch. So you do have to replace the tubes or get it professionally cleaned, or you can try to clean it yourself. You can do that with they prefer the cardboard or the bamboo. They love the bamboo reeds. If you have bamboo in your yard, mason bees will tend to flock to that as well. Because there's an instant hole, so they like to fly in and lay in
Because
there.
I have these flowers that make those long, and it has a hole, but I put them together, but I don't know if they would go into something.
So I do have, so everything up here that I have a little ladybug house.
Right.
I have a butterfly house and I have some bee washes up here. Some more information in reference to mason bees.
Than what they would like.
Yes, and I also have some tubes in case you want to make your own mason bee house.
I got these at the dollar store. I
Yes,
was shocked when I went in looking for little bee things to make bee baths, and I saw this and I was like, oh, look, they had them, and it was only $8. But there's a website called Rent Mason Bees. And you can go on there and you can order the bees. They will send you a bee house.
yes,
They will send you a plastic tube, and it's filled with cocoons, mason bee cocoons. And they go inside these little holes and they hatch and then they start their life cycle. And at the end of the season, you take the whole thing and ship it back and they clean it for you and they'll send it back to you the following year and all that. It was fascinating. I had no idea that this was even possible, but it's a great idea to just teach your kids that, we don't appreciate our food. Every little piece of berry, everything that we eat is pollinated, either by a bee or some other type of bug or butterfly or caterpillar or whatever. So when you think of your, blueberries that you you buy them at the store and you think that's where they come from. Well, no, there's a farm and there's the beekeeper who's gonna make sure that they get pollinated. So they can make those berries, and then somebody's gonna come in and pick all those things, package them. They do, all that's an industry local to South Jersey. We have one of the largest blueberry farms in the state, I guess, at Atlantic Blueberry. So, I mean, I walked through there and I saw what a massive operation it was. That's where your food comes from.
Yeah.
You can't eat no bees, no butterflies, no food.
Right.
And that's the bottom line. So we have to be kind to the environment, understand it, and not be afraid of it. And like he said, you can't be afraid you're gonna get stung because that bee's there to protect the hive.
Yes.
Want to pollinate something that you're gonna eat, so we're all part of this whole big life cycle.
Yeah.
And people really don't appreciate that stuff. The more you learn about it, the more you appreciate it, and yes,
Whatever made you get into mason bees? I've heard of people getting into honeybee, but I've never heard anybody as dedicated to mason bees as you.
So.
What? You
I'm
know,
allergic to
raise
bees.
bulls, honeybees, but never
Mason
to that level mason.
So, the reason why I got into bees, because number one, I'm allergic to bees. But because I'm allergic to it, I wanted to know about everything about them and what makes them tick, what different species they are, and why, like, what is their purpose? So, like Nanette said, and like the beekeeper said, there's so many different bees out there that they all have a specific job. And the mason bee, because they don't really sting. I was able to actually interact with them, and I love flowers, so because they don't sting, and I don't have a reaction to the mason bee, which made me interested into learning more and actually having a little garden with a whole bunch of mason bees. So I do have some tubes up here that you can make your own mason bee. So what you would take is you can take a container, a coffee container, or anything to that such nature. My Dollar Tree receipt should have it. And what you would do is you would stack these in here, or you can tie them with some type of string to make this like almost like a hive. Make sure that they're tight because they if it's space in there, they will not fly to it. So you need to make sure that it's tight and very little space, because not only will mason bees come in here, but you have other insects that will go in there as well, such as butterflies. They will tend to lay eggs in there as well. So we do have butterfly kits up here. We have little ladybug birds, ladybug houses, as well as stickers where you can create your own bee and put it on your birdhouse here. So that's my presentation. I hope I gave you some information. Does anybody have any questions?
How do they survive in the winter?
So just like all the other bees, they will burrow under in the ground.
Okay.
So, yes.
They can plant a flower for the butterflies to come, they'll come to it,
Yes. Yeah.
or how?
So butterflies and mason bees are like besties. So.
You guys want to come up here? Yeah, you can see some stuff. But thank you, Samantha.
It's not
And
that
bees will.
There's the
Here we go. So this is what house. You can put that together. You can fold it.
And you will keep the same.
So yeah, and then you can make your own stickers here. And I also have bigger profit. Here's the explanation. You want to know the difference between
Bumblebees are the ones.
honeybees and mason bees, and then here's pollinators. And these are so if you want to take that, you're that's good. Put some rocks in here. Yes. There's a bee watch here. Put some rocks. And they like a platform to stand on.
I know what.
That's what I- Yes, that's what I- and put that in there.
And every once in a while.
Those are some vegetables, they prefer butterflies, they prefer milkweed.
Yeah, these are milkweed, and we want some of them, yeah.
So-
Just talking about.
Modern butterflies love milkweed, that's the only one that they will lay their eggs on. So if you plant them, what happens is they then come back every year and they'll just lay their eggs and you'll have a whole garden full of butterflies.
But they're weeds, so.
Yes,
They're weeds.
they will spread. So if you plant them, you might wanna plant them in a pot or in a container.
Right, or where you don't.
Where you don't
Yeah.
mind having. They will spread. Yeah.
The bird. Any of those, just.
And it's one of the greatest
Plant some like.
These are.
We have one night, like we.
That would be. For. Not all.
This is the lady. That's the lady.
Your stars are.
Oh,
That's why. And people. But I like it, you'll, they don't sing, and hey, they're really different. That was good.
And I look so fast, I can see.
No, this is
not. Yes, they're a body, right?
No, you don't. You know that. You're not gonna get it all around them.